Hi, my name is Mark Brown with PonyBoy Pop Art. Today we're going to be going over how to paint Duck Detective. Duck Detective is an awesome model that is made available by Boris 3D Studio, and you can get it on his Cults 3D page at cults3d.com. And today we're going to go over how I printed him out, painted him, and made him like this. So follow along and I hope you have fun. So I have to say I've been excited to print this model for a while. He came out great. The face is just amazing. I mean, not a mar or anything out of place. His hair is just perfect, and the cigar is great. And details like the wrinkles in the cloth. Still got a little alcohol dripping out of here. I just got it done cleaning it out of the vat. Oh, a lot of alcohol dripping out of there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start to assemble him, get him glued together, and then I'll cure him. As I usually state in my videos here, I do like to get them assembled before they're cured, just because they do end up shrinking quite a bit, and or can shrink, and at that point they may shrink a little differently. So if they're glued together and in place when they cure, then they'll just kind of weld as one single unit, and that's what we're going to be shooting for. So I'm going to go ahead and start just gluing him in place, and then I'll come back to you in a few minutes when he's put together and getting ready to get into the curing station. Alright, and here's our guy. So we're going to put him into the curing station now. Oops, sorry. And let him solidify up, and we'll come back in a little bit. I now have our Duck Detective glued together and cured, and he is looking pretty good, very solid. We've got a little bit of a disconnect right there. I'll have to look and see if that was part of the model or just a flub with the print. But otherwise, looking great. I'm going to take a moment and glue up our drain holes. So we had a couple that were still showing on the bottom of his bill, and I just try and put those somewhat out of sight. Just a little dot on there. I don't know if I got that. So let's be good here, and just a little dot in each of the holes, and they should suck up, but also or suck into the hole. But you can also look at the side, and if you still see some, just take a little bit of one of your throwaway Q-tips and smooth it out and let that dry. And we're all set with that. I'm going to now take a couple of moments. Oh, one more hole back here. Pretty well glued itself up, but just to be sure. One of the problems is if you don't glue these up and you just let it set, and it did have any uncured resin in there that can seep out through the hole, and then like this here, can actually start to come out after you've painted, which really bites. So definitely take care of those holes right away, and let this dry. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of sandpaper. I can still feel on his pants here where some of the support structure is still held on too tight. So I'm just going to grab some heavy grit sandpaper and just work on those rough parts a little bit until I feel and I'm not feeling those bumps anymore. So I'm just going to keep doing this for a few minutes. I'm going to take it offline, and then I will be right back. While I had the sandpaper out, I verified the fit of the model with the base. It was still a little tight, so I did quite a bit of sanding here just to grind these down, because there's a little calibration difference between my resin printer and my PLA printer. So now that I've got it sanded, this fits really nice in here. There's just a little tiny gap around the back and of the foot here, but I already know how that's going to be getting glued in, so I'm not concerned about that. And it's going to look great on here. So we're just going to go ahead and give this a quick coat of matte to enamel, just to give it a locked in base, so to speak, that I can paint on and not worry about messing up the wood itself. This was printed in Tianse Wood PLA, which was really nice for the look on the base itself. We are going to weather this up quite a bit, but I really like the natural feel, so to speak. So I'm going to set this aside, let it dry, and then we will now prime up our duck detective. And I'm going to set him here for the moment. Now, alright, so I've got my 2-in-1 filler primer. This is just a wonderful primer even for your resin prints, just because it helps the paint stick to your resin. It's not so much that you're looking to fill in gaps or layer lines, so to speak, with the primer like you would be with a FDM print, but again, it just does help with the allowing the paint to stick. So just give him, and you can also see just some of the details pop right out as soon as he gets hit with this. So we'll give this a little bit to dry and then start painting. I've got some Iron Oxide here, and the concept that I've got is this guy, he looks like Howard the Duck. I'm not sure if he's that or a detective from DuckTales. I don't care, I'm not going exactly from that one. But he does look like he's been out in the rain and kind of beaten up, so I'm wanting to basically give him a muddied landscape for him to be on. So I tried a gray, but it was a little more blue than I wanted. So I'm actually switched over to the Iron Oxide. I'm just doing some testing on the back here. Yeah, that's gonna give our color of mud. So I'm just gonna flip it over and kind of water this Iron Oxide down a fair bit, just bringing a little more water into it from the brush. And a little more water. Yeah, I think we still need a little more. And now once I've got it decently thinned out, I'm just going to take it and start painting over this guy. I will work on the different layerings of it in a little bit, but right now I just kind of want to get a rough overview of the whole thing. You notice there's still a lot of the wood showing through in areas, but it's just kind of dingy, and also a little bit of the shine, which I think is cool. I realized that'll help on that whole wet effect. So I'm going to get a little more water, thin this out a little more. And basically spread this all around. One thing I'm trying to do is avoid any consistent brush strokes. It's very easy to just get patterned in and start brushing all the same way, but the next thing you know is when you look at it after it's dried, you can see a lot of very clear brush strokes in it, and at that point the illusion that this is just actual earthy terrain is gone, because the earth isn't brushed, obviously. So what I like to do is just kind of go back in various areas that seems a little too straight lined and feather it out. And now I've just got a kind of a dingy top coat to it. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to actually go over it again and do the exact same thing, and just get a little more dingy on the top and a little more inconsistent. Anywhere that I see specific light areas, like I did right here, I'm going to hit those over again, and also make sure to spin it around and get a good look at it to see if there's if a different angle highlights anything for you. And if it does, then deal with it. And once nothing really jumps out at your eye and it just seems like, yeah, it is a kind of dirty, nasty piece of looking wood, and then that's where you call it good. So as my buddy Joe Bransick over at Likeness 3D told me, you really want to have a backstory for your character models when you're painting them. This guy being in a somewhat dirty back alley or dirty anywhere, I think this is really starting to get the concept for him already. And we haven't even started weathering it really yet, so I'm going to take this over and lock it down with some matte enamel, and then we will start painting on Howard. Not Howard. Start painting on the duck. I actually realized on looking at the flecks of light that are coming off of the metal flake in the iron oxide, I really like this, so I want to not use the matte enamel, but I'm going to switch over to using satin clear, and that's going to help keep that that wet feel going on the painting. Really didn't want to get it that wet, but there we go. Okay, didn't take much. Just gonna let that dry and start painting on the duck. I usually start working on the bigger parts, the main areas of coverage, but I actually realized, I've got this iron oxide out right now. Let's just go ahead and use some of it. So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, and we're just wanting to hit the areas that we know for sure would be iron. And what better than starting with this pistol or revolver. Yeah, that's starting to look like a gun already. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's still got a dark stock. We'll make it darker than this so that it's actually close to black, but this will just give a nice base to it. Again, when you're painting these, gotta rotate every possible way, because when the person starts looking at it later, whether that is you or some friend, or if you're selling models, then the person is going to buy them. You never know who's going to look at it and how. So, over to the other side, I'm going to do the same. And also, you know what? I'm going to hit up the ash on this cigar. Alright, now I'm going to do the other side of the gun, and I'll come back to you. Now that we're done with the iron, I'm going to go ahead and follow my normal procedure, which is to start working on the majority of his primary color, just so that I can really get a lot of things done. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and work on his head and his hands. There's a couple of different ways we can go on this. I'm choosing a reference image that is off of Howard the Duck. Really seems very close to this, and he is one of the white ducks, so I'm figuring I'm going to go with a white for the start, and then I'm going to, which is titanium white up there, and then I'm going to come back and wash over it with some buttermilk just to give a little bit of variation on the colors. But for now, let's start on the back of him here and just start working on getting a base coating onto him and go from there. Again, make sure to vary anything with your brush strokes. You're not wanting to see any. Since we're using acrylic, you do have an ability. I've got a little bit of a pock mark there, just disappeared. So, and use your acrylic to your advantage, and also remember not to mix your waters with your colors, because you can get a dirty off-white there. So I'm going to just keep going along here. Don't worry about if you hit a little bit of his cap with your paintbrush or with the flipped over hair pieces. really anything will always come back and touch up. We're just looking to 80-20 it, so to speak, and get some good base coverage to start turning them from gray to something recognizable. So I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to keep doing this. We'll be right back. Now that I got his body ready, I'm going to switch over and work on his pants. I want to give him some beige pants. So I mixed up some honey brown with some flesh here, and got a light mix over here, which is looking really nice. And I'm just going to go ahead and start putting that onto his pants. And I think I'm going to lighten that up just a little bit, so I'm going to bring in a little more of this. Yeah, that's a lot better. That's what I was looking for. So I'm just going to keep this going on his pants and finish that out. So this is where he's at with the beige pants. I've decided I'm going to paint his shirt blue, and I think that'll really complement his white body and his brown hat, his orange bill that'll be coming, as well as his feet. So overall, I think it's going to look great. I'm going to rinse out my brush here, make sure all of my brown is out of there, and then just pick up a little bit of this blue. Once again, flip over and start on the back and just see how it looks here. Yep, that's what I was hoping it would look like. So I'm just gonna give a light coating over this. I don't think I mentioned, you'll hear and possibly notice my palette, very high end. I get it every time I order takeout. So rather than going and paying money for any expensive palette, don't. If you order any takeout food, you probably got some plastic or coated paper containers. I've used the other side already for the Hulk project that you may have noticed my video for, and since I was done with that, I just flipped it over, and now I've got another palette all ready for use. And price is free because I order takeout every now and again, so when I do, it comes with it. And for my oils, you'll notice later, I don't use these, but I do use heavy gloss cardstock that comes in the mail. Any of those things from your real estate agent or whatnot, Kroger's, etc., etc. It's usually a nice thick glossy stock that you can then paint with or put your oils on and not have to worry about them soaking in. So I'm just gonna keep on going like this, and looking at his hair, I'll probably go ahead and put another coat of white on here, and then I guess I might as well do his hat and get pretty much most things with a base coat before we hit him with enamel. Alright, now that we've got his shirt done and his pants done, I'll have to touch up that where I just went too strong. And I do have that honey brown still out. I am going to pull out a smaller brush here and just going to go ahead and do his belt, and then I'll start with actually the big brush and I'll do his hat. because both of those are going to be in that honey brown. Make sure I get all the blue out of there again. Just the brown. All right. Now that we've got to this far, I'm going to go ahead now and switch to that small brush after I clean this out and start painting this belt there. So as oftentimes happens, I get into painting and then realize, oh, yep, I had a little crack here that I'd made a note to myself I needed to fill in and then didn't. So once this dries, I'll go back and fill that in and then just touch up the paint job there. No big deal, but I am happy with how he's coming along so far, so I'm not going to get frustrated in the least. This is just a great model. And like I had noted earlier, it's been on my list for quite a while to do. I'm glad I'm doing them now. Alright, I'm going to take a moment here, wash off my brush, get this mixture and fix my overpaint where my blue hit on there. Might as well since we're there. And a couple of places where I was holding on to them. I do try to hold on to the painted or unpainted pieces only, but it gets a little hard as it keeps going. And that's one of the benefits of spraying it down with the enamel. So now that I've got his hat done and his belt, just going to do one more little bit here on his band. I want to pull in that color that we mixed, that almost flesh color that we mixed with the brown to get the beige pants. And I'm just going to go over and use that as our accent here. Now this band is one of those where you definitely are going to want to come back and be precise. Any of the odd brush stroke that goes outside of the line and doesn't give a clean line is going to catch your eye, and then it's just going to annoy you later on. So for sure, clean lines on the hard lined areas. And of course, if you don't get a clean line right away, don't worry about it, just paint over it. And that time, make a hard, clean line. Actually not too worried about brush strokes on this part because it actually adds to the cloth feel to it. So I'm just going ahead and letting it go. Okay. Some touch-ups needed, still need to do his bill, still need to do his feet, still need to do his tie, and still need to give him another coat of white, most likely. But, you know, maybe not, because I was planning on giving him an off coat of slightly yellowing anyway, so maybe we'll just do that for the wash. But definitely coming along really well so far. So we're going to take a moment and go over and spray it down with some matte enamel and get these locked in like they are. So I've got some UV resistant clear matte enamel. Just going to give a nice coat over this. We'll do the front and the back, but I want to make sure I've got a nice even coat. And we're going to let this sit for about 10-20 minutes, let it dry, and then we'll come back. But already, he's really starting to smooth out and look great. Now this next step is always a little bit risky because you never know how it's going to go exactly, but I'm really confident on it. What I'm going to do is take this Payne Grey Acrylic, which is a deep, dark, kind of blue-gray, and thick brush here, and really just get it nice and coated. Verify that it's really in there well. And we're going to spray it down, with just a spray bottle of water. Now, I'm going to do a quick test just off to the side. And you notice all those nice splotches, just like big raindrops. And what do you know? Our guy is standing in kind of a bunch of muddy pool of water. And when we spray that down with high gloss, or paint it over with high gloss enamel, that'll definitely look very wet. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to just keep going on that. I think I want it to be the primary and the underlying wood to be the secondary. Not getting a whole lot out here, so I'm just going to spray it down again and then give it some more tries. Oh yeah. Anywhere that's light, just go back and really hit that area well. That is great. I'm going to be going back over that with some black, which will really help add in the multi-tone effect, and I think this is going to be a wonderful base. I took a paper towel and dabbed off some of the really excessive areas there, and now I'm just taking some charcoal black and I'm going to repeat the same process. And then I'm going to just go for some smaller droplets. Alright, now that black and the blue and the wood underneath, and then once we've glossed it all up, I think we're going to have a pretty good looking oily, muddy base rim. A lot of the reference images show these character ducks as having white and blue eyes, just like a human, but I didn't really like that. And if you look at real ducks' eyes are just pure black. And that's all I could imagine for this guy, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to delicately fill in just his eyes with the pure black, and we're going to gloss that up later. Yeah, I've got the wrong brush for this. Alrighty. So I went outside the lines quite a bit there, but this is really the concept that we're going for, just the pure black. And that is what I was wanting it to look like. A little cleaner, but just like this. I don't know if the camera's still with me, but that's where we're at there. Now I'm just gonna go back over and fix the white areas. That is looking good. I'm gonna take just a little bit of that black and dot it into his nostrils. All right. We're getting close on our duck detective here, so we're gonna grab some Vivid Orange and handy dandy brush and just get going on his bill and on his feet. And see how we're coming along here. I'll be switching to another brush in a minute, but this is good for just getting a nice amount everywhere. Alright, a little thick, but it's okay. I'm just going to spread that out. And then since it kind of blends in, I'm going to blend it in a minute here by watering that down and thinning it out. And then just stretching it into, oh, stretched that a little too much. Alright, yep, time to get a different brush so that I don't have so much rework. So that's where he's at with his bill. And we're gonna switch over and start working on his feet. I think we can grab the other big brush again. Alright, definitely have some touch-ups to do still, but the last major bit that I want to do is his tie. And I've decided the other primary color we haven't dealt with here is red. And I think that is going to be just perfect. So I'm going to try not to grab him by the wet paint. And clean off my brush here. Grab some primary red. So one last thing for our final base coverage. I realized I didn't do his actual cigar itself. I did the ashes, but not the cigar. So I just need a little drop. Going with Burnt Sienna here. And a small brush. See if I can grab somewhere that's not wet. We have a base painted guy with all of the major areas hit with a base color. So definitely time to take him over, let him dry a little bit, and then spray him down with Matte Enamel and get this locked for the next phase. I had made mention before that I wanted to go over this guy's body with another color other than that titanium white, just to give it a little more depth. So I'm taking some Light Buttermilk here and just really gonna thin this out. So adding a lot of water. I don't know if that can be seen, but basically I'm just grabbing some from my brush and bringing it over to my palette and really getting that watery thin. And as usual, I'm going to start on the back of him here and just kind of go over this. That's a little more than I want, so I'll probably thin this out quite a bit more before I keep going. But there were some bits of orange that I had on him, so might as well hit those now. And so what I'm going to do here is, since it was a little more thicker than I wanted, is literally just kind of spread it out over the body and not go back to the well for any more of the paint, but just keep spreading it around. And the more I spread it, the thinner it's going to get. In some areas I'm going to get up tight, and some I'm not, depending. And that'll help on giving those variations of color. And that's looking better. Not so stark white, a little more variation. I need to bleed that in a little bit better there. Oh, Okay, I'll bring it down to the hands. Alright, we've got a pretty dirty looking base, but a very clean looking duck. Obviously he's very ruffled around the edges as far as his clothes, and there's a couple of paint spots that I've have rubbed off here because I had handled it before hitting it with the acrylic, or sorry, with the enamel. But I'm not actually worried about that because he's been tromping around in the mud. Obviously, that's his backstory, and so certainly his pants and a bit of his shirt that's hanging out here are going to be a little bit rumpled up and dirty. So we're just going to go ahead and get started on doing that. We're going to take some Burnt Umber water-based oil, just get a little bit of water and oil on our brush. It's going to give this really dirty, muddy bit. If you've seen my any of my videos before, you know this is my favorite oil to start with. I like to get a lot of it off so that it ends up giving just a dry brushing. And I'm going to start on the bottom because I really want to just kind of get an idea of how this is going to look. And he's going to be glued down, so we won't be seeing this. And a little bit of the effect that I'm looking for. I think I need a little more wet though. So we'll try it again. And try on the other foot here. Oops, sorry. Kind of. I think I have to just kind of be a little careful with this, and so we'll try some interesting techniques. So instead of brushing it on, I'm going to try just dappling it on. I think it needs to be a little drier than that. Figuring the concept of this guy is he's splashing his feet through the puddles, and we know that the water runs off, but some of the dirt doesn't. That's not doing too bad. I'm just going to keep going like that. Oh, that was good. I like that. Nice little kind of a splash feel on some of this. So that's where we'll just keep going. Oh, there we go. Some nice mud splashes even up on his pant leg. We'll get to his pants a little more, but right now just starting to focus on his feet. And I also want to keep them somewhat even. Don't want one foot oddly compared to the other. And now I'm just going to keep doing the same with his pants. But now we're going to go a little heavier. Actually, that is a lot heavier than I wanted, but that's okay, because that is about what I was looking for. So what I'm going to do is just get the brush a little wet, come back and re-go over this, and what it's going to do is lift it up from some of the areas and then reapply it in others. And I'll hit some of the areas that I hadn't hit before. And just grab a little more and keep going on this. anywhere that was too specific of a pattern. Just rubbing it a little bit there, and next thing we know, we've got kind of grimy pant leg. Looks like he's been walking around as versus clean and unrealistic looking pant leg. I'm going to keep going on this, and we will come back in a few. One thing I wanted to point out is be sure to come up under the bottom of this. Again, he is going to be glued down, and it's literally going to be impossible for someone to peek up under here, but in general, you never know with a 3D printed figure how the observer is going to be looking at it. So you have to be prepared for anyone to look at it in any way. And if they see some gray from the original resin, or from the primer or something of that sort, it's going to break the illusion, and then it just kind of minimizes the efforts that you put into it. So look at it from all areas, and if you see something that looks out of place, then hit it. And so now I've got his pants pretty well grunged up, mostly down at the bottom. So again, it looks like he's been trouncing through some mud and stuff. We're going to come back and do some black on there. But we've got a nice start. So what I'm going to do is take this burnt umber and add a little life into the belt. So if we just brush this lightly on his belt, you notice that it just adds a nice richness to it and turns it from that very bland acrylic to this, I don't know, more realistic look. So just keep going on that. And again, if it gets too much, just keep spreading it out. I'm also not going to worry about it getting onto the blue. As a matter of fact, encouraging it, because it's been sticking out, so it's been getting a little bit of the dirt. Oh, a little heavy there. So like I said, just dip the brush, and in this case we're going to get it completely clean, and then come back over it and pull some of that brown back off. And we said we needed it up on him. It is blue, so let's go ahead and just start reapplying it there. I know that looks really heavy, and certainly more than we need. That's okay. I have a plan. Actually going to grab a little more now, just to even out his shirt. I know, this looks crazy, right? My buddy Joe Brancic over at Likeness 3D taught me early on, do not worry about going a little excessive with the oil, because a little paper towel, Now, grunged up shirt as versus clean shirt. It's not that dirty, not that intense. I've left a little bit up in his pits, and I'll actually add some more back up into this pit. But yep, I'm okay with that. We're just gonna keep going. Sorry, down where you can see. A little more into the pit and the crease line here. And then certainly he's got some issues with sweating under the collar, so to speak. Even though I don't think ducks sweat. Pretty sure they don't. And then again, just gonna bring that and reapply it to this area. And once I've got it out there, just wipe some of that off. Not all of it, just some. Okay. That's looking pretty good there. I'll just bring that around to the front. I'm going to start in the creases and anywhere that I really wanted to emphasize the shadowing, and then we'll just start going from that point. And once again, just do a light wipe there. Kind of liking the looks of that. Alright, now I'm going to flip up and start from the top down, because this is way too plastic looking of a hat. Oh. And this one I'm really just gonna slather and then wipe off later. Because that is starting to look great. Again, if I have a little too much, just bring it around. Matter of fact, I think I just lied. I think I said I was going to wipe this off. I think I'm just going to minimize the brush strokes. Try and turn them into cloth patterns, so to speak. And call that good. Need to do the same with his underside of his hat. And I'm going to go ahead and just pause and continue on with this. Now that we've got a nice bit of grunging up done on him with the burnt umber, I'm going to go back with some black oil, water-based again, and just add a little more grunging in all those same areas. So basically, you know, we have a mix of the brown for some of the dirt, but nothing that really quite captures some of that extra grunge like black. Again, I'm just going to start on the bottom because I don't know how much it's going to go. Yep, that was just a little too intense. I'm just going to knock some of that off my brush. Now I think we're good. Yep. And, oh, sorry, off screen here. So just dappling some on to his feet there. And just grab a little bit more and start working on his pants again. Got a little bit heavy, so I'm going to use that for the underside. Again, thinking through the story of this guy, obviously it would splash up on the underside of the cuff of his pants. So his bottom cuffs are nice and dirty, and we'll just keep working a little bit more on that. Usually I'd say if we have too much, wipe it off, but we did not take the time to go back over and spot this with enamel. So if I just wipe off right now, it's going to wipe off the brown and the black. So instead what I'm doing is just grabbing it and bringing it up. Just keep dapping in that area and then start slowly working your way up the pant leg as well. I'm going to take a little extra black and focus it into the pocket area there. Not that much. We'll have to pull that back out. Right now, we're going to take a little black and just rough up this shirt's collar or extra cuff because, like we said, it's been hanging out. So obviously it's been getting a little grunged up and dirty in its own. Sorry, at this point I'm just now bringing this and I'm a little heavy again. Bring it up on his the front of his shirt and get a little more on his tie. I'm going to take a little of this black, not much, just start to crease up the lines here. Oops, sorry. So I'm just going to crease up or go over the creases on his bill with a little black, and also a little bit up here, help emphasize those frown lines. Yep, again, a little more than I wanted there. See if I can spread that around some. And if not, just a little paper towel. Yeah, that's better. And the bill up top here, I'm really just trying to darken some of the areas that were a little too light. I don't want them quite so dark as I'm getting here. But again, I'm going to go back over that and wipe it down. I noticed a couple of white spots in those breathing holes, and certainly shouldn't have that. Now, give it a little wipe. Yep, I like that. Okay. I think this guy is about ready for another coat of matte just to lock this all in. Really happy with where he's sitting. And you know, we're still going to go over and do a little more touch-ups, but compared to where he was, I like it, so we're going to get this locked down. So we're going to do a couple of quick passes of the clear matte enamel. We don't want to get too wet, so we don't want it to make the effects that we just did run at all. I'm going to spin them around, try and have them touch as little as possible. Okay, we're going to let them sit like this for a few minutes and dry, and we'll come back to them. At this point, our duck is looking really good. I still want to do a little more work on the base. I'm not quite thrilled with that, but there's one more bit that I want to do to wrap up our detective here before we set him aside, and that is to gloss up his eyes. So I'm taking some gloss varnish here and a small paintbrush, and I'm just going to go and paint over the eyeballs there. Now it should show up as kind of a purple, and that is what that glaze looks like when it's wet. That is okay, and actually what we want. So now I'm just going to go over on the other eye here. Alright, and already we can see that there's that nice shine on there, and that should pretty much stay on there. So we're going to go ahead and let that dry, and we will come back and see how we're going to see what we're going to do to our base to really match up with our duck nicely. Alright, we're going to experiment together here because I'm not real thrilled with this. This was in itself an experiment, and it's kind of almost somewhat what I wanted, but not really. So I'm just going to try something different. I've got a can of Stone Accent spray here, and we're just going to see if the light coating of stone on there improves it at all. So we're going to let that dry and come back to it. So once I was done with the giving it a coat of the stone there, I took our big brush and did another smack splatter of just black oil on there to give a whole bunch of the droplets. And so now I'm going to take some gloss clear here and just lightly give it a coat over so that it'll have a nice wet effect. And I think that our base is done other than letting it dry. And then we will mount our duct detective to it and we'll be set. Alright, our last step is to mount this guy. So I'm going to take I've got some JB Weld plastic adhesive, and it makes a solid black, and since this is a dark base and I'm not real worried about any excess black showing through, we're going to just go ahead and use this. Oftentimes I'll use a clear gloss adhesive, but I've used this on a previous model, the Hulk, and it worked out really well. So I'm just going to mix this up here and then make sure none of it leaks, and then just get it all into our foot area and especially the peg hole. Alright, that's good for that one. Get the other side now. Well, that should be great. Okay, I'm going to take that little bit, make sure I have nothing on my hands, and if I do, get it off. And then gently grab our model here and set it into place. I think we're set. We're going to set a timer for half an hour and he should be all done. And here we go. Duct Detective by Boris 3D Studio. This was an awesome print, fun to paint, and I hope you enjoyed, maybe learned some techniques, and for sure follow along and give a big shout out to Boris 3D Studio for his work, and follow PonyBoy Pop Art for more. Thanks everyone, have a great day.